But if a corporation tried to sue us, that'd be great publicity. Come at me, bro. Hey y'all, I'm AJ Reyes.
And I'm Timothy Dailey-Valdes. This is Can I Bother You? Thank you for joining us in our little living room. I'm a little self-conscious at the moment, and I'm not entirely sure why. But welcome to that journey.
Yay! We are happy to go on it with you, Timothy.
Thank you, AJ.
We are here to both uplift you and quietly revel in your suffering. As all friends are. Is that not all friends? Is that just me? Is that just another way that I'm, like, really different and, like, apart from the crowd?
Really unique. Really, like, a trailblazer.
I'm just so special? Yeah. Anyway, so Timothy, why have you brought us here today?
Well, lately I've been thinking a lot about, and I don't mean this how it sounds, but I've been thinking a lot about money. Just like as a concept, not to like bring us down or anything, but I know that times are really difficult for a lot of people right now in the money department with, everything that's going on. I'm not trying to be vague, but I am trying to not dwell too much. Mm-hmm. And it made me think, it's often said that my generation, the millennials, AJ, you're much younger than me, that we are the first generation in modern American history to be less financially stable or less financially comfortable than our parents, as a general rule. And that's definitely the case for me. There's no question that I'm less well off than my parents are now, and I'm not even as well off as they were when they were my age or even younger. So in their adult lives is what I'm talking about. Anyway, but it made me think about the fact that almost implicitly, I'm not sure I ever remember them saying this to me directly, but it was sort of understood in my upbringing. And I think a lot of families, consciously or not, instill this in their kids, especially middle class families, this concept that it's impolite or rude to talk about money. And I think that personally, that gave me a really convoluted understanding or misunderstanding of money, which I can go into a little bit later, and I'm not putting my parents on blast. I love them very much.
I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like, but
and they're very generous people, they're very loving people. I'm not trying to say anything like that.
Right. No, of course not.
But I am saying that since not you, again, not the very young person that you are, but I grew up in the 90s, which was a particularly prosperous decade, and I don't think anybody thought that the 2008 recession was going to happen, and certainly nobody but maybe epidemiologists thought that this dystopian hellscape was going to happen. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that because they assumed, as many middle class parents do, that their children, or in my mom and stepdad's case, their child, are going to advance from the socioeconomic position they grew up in, they didn't have a reason to think that they would need to teach me how to talk to other people about money, how to get information about finances and economics, microeconomics, not macroeconomics. So anyway, I don't think that my, frankly, upper middle class upbringing prepared me to be the relatively poor adult that I am. And so I just know that we're all thinking about money a lot. And if we can't start talking about it now, which, I mean, I know a lot of people have been talking about it for a long time, I realize, but I want to, A, explore that reluctance to talk about it, but B, also just talk about it. You know what I mean?
As someone who talks about money all the goddamn time, I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't remember when, but in the not too distant past, I posted a status on Facebook that was something like, nobody, nothing. Absolutely nobody, nothing. Really and truly nobody, nothing. Me. I'm poor. Like, because I don't think if my parents ever said anything like that, I have no memory of it. The only memories I have of things like that are like with work related things. Cause like at Sonic, I'm pretty sure every job probably, but for Sonic, I specifically remember having to sign papers that said like we wouldn't talk about how much we earn. So I worked at Sonic for almost 10 years, and then maybe the last year and a half that I worked at Sonic, my manager would pay me a little extra. Like, he would, like, add a couple hours to my paycheck so that I would do the schedule for him. And so when I had the schedule, I also knew, in order to keep track of, oh my god, I can't even remember what it's called now, but like, you know, to know who would be on the clock, and I had to know who was making how much so that way I could know who I could put on the clock at what hours. Because like in the early morning, if we have someone who's making too much money and in the morning we don't get enough customers to pay that person, then labor, there we go, that's the term, labor was high. And so I had to know how much everyone made. And so when I was able to see the list of how much everyone made, I was like, no wonder they don't want us talking to each other about how much we make, because it's not fair at all.
Sure.
And so like that's my first memory of anyone telling me not to speak about money. Funny anecdote, we'll get back to this important topic in a second, but when I think I was like 10 years old, I was having my birthday party at McDonald's, and my aunt and uncle gave me like a little electric train, and I was super excited to get it, and I jokingly said, like, I look at the box, and it was from a store called McFrugal's. I don't know if that was a chain or not, but it was sort of like a Dollar General kind of thing. And so it had that logo on the box, and it said that it was $10. And so I was like, oh, this is so $10. And like, I was joking. I was totally joking. But like, no one knew I was joking.
Oh, no.
I just looked like an ungrateful 10-year-old child, you know? It's like $10. And I remember there was like this really awkward like silence. And I was like, I'm kidding. I don't remember saying that I was kidding. I just remember being like, oh, I don't think anyone knows I'm kidding. And I just kept moving.
Your sense of humor was beyond your years.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, even to this day, people can't tell when I'm kidding. Anyway, that was just a funny story I thought of. But yeah, as someone who is also poor, I'm angry at school for not teaching me how to do money things.
Sure.
I'm real angry at school about that.
Taxes and like balancing a budget.
Yeah, all of that, anything at all, really.
Yeah, right. Especially because, okay, so y'all know that we went to school together. We went to public school. And I'm trying to figure out how to put this. This isn't even that interesting. I'm derailing us too much already. But what I'm trying to say is that the man runs the schools. The man collects the taxes. You would think the man would want to teach you how to pay said taxes.
Right?
Just a thought. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, that was about all I had. Just that the school system... Wait, didn't I make a joke recently about the school system failing us?
I'm sure that you did.
I definitely did.
I don't recall the specific joke, but I recall you saying something.
This was not worth bringing up, yeah, because I can't remember it. It was, just take my word for it, it was a very funny joke.
I do want to backtrack just in case anybody at my current place of employment is listening. I'm not trying to say that I don't get paid enough. I'm just saying that the cost of living in Austin is particularly high, and like there are a lot of factors, and I'm very grateful for my job. And I'm not just saying that to suck up. I really am very grateful that I have a job during the pandemic, and I'm making more money now than I've ever made in my life. I'm just saying that I don't know what I'm saying. But speaking of my job, I'm not allowed to make public political statements. So this isn't a political statement. This is an economic statement. Going back to what you were saying about corporate employers not wanting you to discuss money, you are 100% correct that a huge part of it is that they don't want other employees to see unfair payment practices. And a big part of why they don't want employees finding out how unfair the compensation is or can be is that they don't want employees unionizing.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a union, you have a lot more bargaining power. You have a lot more agency. This is not me getting on a platform and saying, you know, everybody unionize at your job. You do your thing. I am not qualified to give you any advice, but I do want to say what I just said. So there we go.
Thank you for joining us on this episode.
sorry, y'all.
Yeah, tell me about how you're poor again. I mean, because, like, I can talk about my boredom for, like, years, because it's been going on for years. When I first moved out of my parents' house, I was 18 years old. It was a little over 6 months after my 18th birthday, and the amount of money that I had then in my bank account, I have not had that much money since. Because very quickly it all dissipated. And, like, I don't drink, I don't go out clubbing, or anything like that. I mean, like, if there was anything I could cut back on, it'd probably be, like, buying Dr. Pepper and cookies. But I mean, I'm sad, so I've earned those. Like,
Yeah.
I think also partially, though, in addition to just, not being paid enough and the cost of living, that first year I moved out of my parents' house, I went big that Christmas. My family is huge, and so I was like, I'm gonna get everyone something, and I think that's a big part of what drained me. That, and I wasn't very happy then. I was just learning how to be an adult and, like, what it meant, and I just wasn't very happy. So to make myself feel better, I'd go shopping all the time. So y'all, I don't know if you remember what DVDs are, but, like, I think last time I counted, I've gotten rid of some, but I'm pretty sure I probably still have somewhere around 200 DVDs, and, like, that collection mostly grew those first few years after I moved into my apartment.
When they were given to you as a vintage collection by someone much older than you who was around in the heyday of DVDs.
I think we're gonna have to drop the age jokes just because, like, they come up way too often.
I'm sorry. That probably wasn't funny even.
Regardless of how funny or not funny it was, I think that we've worn our welcome, probably. Unless y'all like it, in which case message us on the socials or through our email address. Look, it's all in the show notes. If you like the fact that I pretend I am significantly younger than I am, you let me know, because I gotta tell you, I definitely like it. But we're here both for us, but also for you. So
Absolutely.
So if any of our jokes get old, you let us know, and we'll just block you. Anyway,
I'll never block you. I'm not trying to one-up AJ.
I mean, you couldn't. Anyway, what was I doing before you made that bad joke?
I'm so sorry. You were talking about your DVD collection and how you accumulated it.
Yeah. Just anyway, yeah. Okay. So the point of that story was just that I haven't had that much money since then, and it's not because I'm spending frivolously.
You said it.
Oh, did I get it right the first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Frivolously.
All right. Show off.
You said it correctly too.
Okay, Tim. Maybe let me finish my story.
I'm so sorry.
Anyway, the point is that money is hard.
For sure. Yeah. Like right now, I'm lucky to be making more than I've ever made as an adult, but I got this job immediately prior to the original lockdown. The original lockdown definitely sounds like an album.
Oh.
You know?
That's our album.
Oh my God, love it. Anyway, but you know what I mean. Like at the beginning of March 2020 is when I started this job. Prior to that, I was a substitute teacher. And I don't know if you out there in listening land know what the situation for substitute teachers is like. I know in different places it's a little different one way or the other. I will say in our location, we did not get paid a living wage. I'm just going to say that right now. We didn't get paid a living wage. And there were times when, I mean, I know a lot of you out there can probably relate to this. Like, there were times when my bank account went negative. There were times when I had to ask my parents for money, which I was always extremely grateful, and I'm very privileged in multiple senses of that word. You know, I felt very guilty doing it when I needed to do it, and I did pay them back. Not to brag isn't even the right word, because that is not a brag, but like I'm not trying to like, you know, save face or anything, but like I felt very guilty about that. And anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, but yeah, so like it was not great. I was living paycheck to paycheck, if you can even call it that. And it was not a great situation. And I had nothing in my life prepared me for that at all.
Yeah, living paycheck to paycheck, oh my God. Yeah, that is how I've lived my entire adult life. And yes, oh man, going negative. I'm so like my bank, luckily, I mean, I don't even know, maybe this is a thing that most banks do actually, but if I overdraft, it'll let me overdraft. If I don't have the funds in my account, it'll like make up what I don't have. And so there have been times when I plan to overdraft. I'm like, I don't have the money for this. So I'm gonna overdraft. I'm just gonna add that into my budget, I guess.
Same.
Because if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't have groceries or rent money. So, like, oh, that reminds me, I owe you rent money. Anyway, that's why you brought this up.
It's really not.
But yeah, no, living paycheck to paycheck, it's like, that's the way most people go negative.
Well, and too, if you think about it, like that overdraft fee, like essentially it becomes, and there are so many of these, if you're rich, you can afford to pay that. There's a phrase for it. It's like, but I can't remember what it is. But essentially, it's like how when fines are the punishment for crimes, it becomes like a ticket for the rich to do things that the poor are punished for, essentially.
Yeah.
And like the quote unquote punishment is the same for both, but it's disproportionate, right? And so, like, yeah, overdraft fees, you know, to someone who makes enough money to pay them without another thought, it makes it a very different situation than it is for people who have lower incomes. It's a punishment, but it's also like you have to be pragmatic about it. And like sometimes you have to say, I'll pay that 30 or 40 or however many dollars penalty later to like be able to eat this week or like to be able to pay my electric bill or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just a crazy system.
Yeah. Don't worry, y'all. We're not just here to talk about how terrible the world is. We're also here to provide solutions. So, number one, I suggest that you get a better paying job.
Number two, you're eating too much avocado toast and buying too many coffees. We're 100% kidding, y'all.
What?
That's another, like, that stigma that society has against people with lower incomes buying not 100% necessary things is, like,
Yeah.
super gross.
Yeah, they're like, she has food stamps, but did you see the nails on her hand when she went to use that card? And it's like, oh, how dare her? Like, how dare her want to feel better in any way, shape, or form? How dare her do something that makes her happy when she's so poor? Like,
Right.
she's poor. She has no right to look good if she wants to look good.
Yeah. Or like sometimes I think that there's a certain subset of the population that like expects poor people to like dress in rags or something. They're like, oh, you know, this person can afford like a nice button down shirt and a tie, but they can't but they're on food stamps or whatever. And it's like,
Right.
how do you expect anybody to ever, I mean, you go around talking about people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and making something of themselves, quote unquote, but then you like judge them when they try.
Right? Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Well, yeah, one of my favorite phrases is "Don't punish the actions you want to see."
Yes.
Yeah, and like I've been in the car with people before, and we'll see like a homeless person on the street, and they won't look homeless enough, I guess. And like the people I've been in a car with before, this has happened on several occasions with nobodies, obviously. But they'll see someone and be like, they don't look homeless, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess they're not then. Like. You think they don't look homeless, so they're definitely not now. Thank God you saved them. Like, what?
And like, this is such a cliche, so I apologize in advance, but everybody's fighting a battle that you can't see, like that you know nothing about. Everybody's as complex and like full a person as you.
Yeah.
Like even though you only see a tiny sliver of people. By people, I mean literally every other human being on the planet besides you yourself. And you know, sometimes it can be easy to think that you know a lot more about a person than you do. I don't know what anybody's going through. None of us really does, you know?
right?
And so, like, to assume that you know, like, oh, this person's life's not that bad, or, oh, you know, if they really tried, they could raise themselves out of poverty or whatever. You don't know. You don't know what people go through, and we're all just trying to live, you know?
I won't give any specifics this time, but there was another job that I had at one point, and my manager there, I had told her about, or him.
I don't think the gender of this person is too revealing.
If any of my ex-coworkers are listening, they know. Anyway, so at an old job that I had, I told my manager about my money issues, and she was like, oh, okay, well, let me help you budget. And I'm like, it's not about the budget, it's the fact that you're paying me minimum wage. and giving me 25 hours a week. You think I'm supposed to live off of minimum wage at 25 hours a week? And, like, she was on vacation every few months, and that's not an exaggeration. She would, like, get on a plane and go somewhere every few months. Multiple times it was out of the country. And I'm like, you can afford to go on vacation, and I can't afford to use my discount on my lunch break here. Like, you know how much you're paying your employees. How can you possibly think it's our fault that we can't afford to live? The number of people who are like, well, what are you buying? And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's none of your fucking business. But secondly, nothing. I'm literally buying nothing. I barely buy food. I pay for gas so I can get to work, and I pay for my rent and my bills. Like, I mean, I'm not buying anything. You're not giving me the money to buy anything else.
For sure. Yeah. Everybody deserves a living wage. I don't think that's a radical idea.
I mean, you wouldn't think it was, but if you compare it to the other ideas that, like, you know, people of all skin colors are equal, like, I mean, if you compare it to that, it's like everything's a radical idea, I guess, if people aren't equal just because their skin color is different. So it's almost not surprising to me that money is a big deal. For some, money's a big deal to everyone in different ways. Money's a big deal to those of us who don't have it because, I mean, who knows if we're gonna not eat. There's so many times that I haven't eaten. But then money's a big deal to the people who have it because they have so much of it. Why would they want to give it away? Why would they want anyone else to have it? They have enough, so why don't we? Oh my god. Tim, I think we just made an important discovery. People are trash. Do people know about that? Listeners, did y'all know that people are trash? Not you, you're great.
Oh, man.
Honestly, you might be trash. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm definitely trash.
Oh, I am most assuredly trash.
Okay, kind of stealing my thunder, but like, okay.
Oh, man. When I was thinking about this as a topic, there was some story I was gonna tell, and I can't remember what it was.
You told me, I think all you mentioned to me was talking, or like not talking about it as a kid and not knowing.
Yeah. I don't, like, looking back on it, I don't completely understand what I thought. Specifically about, I guess, on the one hand, my family's financial situation, and on the other hand, I guess there are three hands. On one of the other hands, like, how money works, and, like, I hate this phrase, but, like, the value of a dollar.
Yeah.
And then on the third hand, like, the financial situation that other people were dealing with. I was just really naive, I think, until I was an adult and, like, actually kind of into adulthood. But, like, I remember on the one hand, I need to stop using that phrase. Anyway.
You got so many hands.
I have so many hands.
How do you find clothes that fit?
But, like, I remember as a really little kid, I thought if you need something, you just get it. Like, I mean, that sounds bad. If you need something, just, if you're a kid, go to an adult and like an adult who loves you.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a story. It's not a story I had thought of, but I remember one time I was in HEB with, HEB is a Texas chain of grocery stores. For any out-of-state listeners we might have, I don't know. Anyway, early to mid-90s, my aunt, my cousins, we were just shopping, and there was a little, like one of those Mylar balloons on a stick. Like, it doesn't have helium, just air, but yeah. I don't know why I'm specifying. It's a MacGuffin. Anyway,
I like that that's what you're not gonna talk about, though. You're not gonna explain the MacGuffin, but definitely talk about that balloon.
Wait, you mean like the fact that I'm not defining the word MacGuffin? Is that?
Yeah, like what a MacGuffin means, because, I mean, while I'm sure most of our listeners probably know, that's not a phrase that everyone just says randomly, but people know what balloons are. Like...
Okay, that's fair. I'm sorry, y'all. Just very quickly, a MacGuffin is a literary device or a media, like a thing in fiction that is like a plot important object, but it doesn't matter what the object is. So like the Maltese Falcon or Rosebud in Citizen Kane or like things like that. Anyway.
Thank you, Timothy. Go on.
So I saw this balloon, and it was a Bugs Bunny balloon. I don't know if I said that. I don't know if that's important. Anyway, it was in the bakery next to the donuts. And for the protection of her identity, I'm going to give her a false name. My Aunt Sadie, who's an amazing woman and like phenomenal. I would not probably be alive if it weren't for her. And if she is listening and remembers this story, she knows who she is. Anyway, I have a lot of aunts. Anyway, or aunts, if you come from a location where you don't pronounce the insect and the relative the same way. Anyway, so AJ is just like so over it right now. Anyway, I asked her if we could get the balloon. You know, please, Aunt Sadie, can we get this balloon? Mm-hmm. And she said, no, I'm sorry, Timothy, it's not on sale. And I thought that meant it's not for sale. I thought that meant that it wasn't available to purchase. And I said, no, look, there's a price tag on it right here. And she was like, Timothy, like, no, this isn't, we don't need this balloon. And it's more money than we need to be spending on a balloon right now. And like, because her financial situation was also different than my parents, not that that's necessarily all that relevant, but I remember, like, that was a really like teachable moment. I hate that phrase, but like, it was a moment where it's a moment I remember very vividly, because that's where I learned that, like, this sounds so like obvious, but like, you can't just, even if you can afford something, I mean, it's irresponsible to just go around buying whatever you want all the time without thinking about it. But also, like, not everybody can afford everything. And like, I feel so like gross and just not good when I think about the fact that I needed to find out something that people like know their whole lives. Yeah, I think it's a weird, like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, the plight of the upper middle class person having to find out what it's like. I'm not trying to say that. But I am just saying I don't know what I'm saying, y'all.
Oh God, it's your own Prince and Pauper tale.
I hate myself so much in this moment.
Oh my God. No, I mean, like, yeah, everyone's got to learn things at some point. You're not born knowing things, and just because some of us learned that earlier than you did doesn't make you worse than us. That's not why you're trash, Timothy. I think when I was a kid, I'm pretty sure my parents said once or twice, we can't afford that. But I also didn't think of us, I think we were probably lower middle class. I can't know that for sure, because I've never really discussed that with my parents at all. But I'm thinking we were lower middle class, but also I was a child, so like no one told me anything, of course.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
But if we were hurting for money, thinking back through my memories, I can't find any clues that we were. So I'm pretty sure lower middle class, probably pretty securely where we were. But I do remember when I was in middle school. I don't remember how old I was, but it was in one of those 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Unless you're from somewhere that didn't have middle school, but here in America, not even all of America, but
here in Texas,
we had middle school, so there's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So in one of those 3 grades, I was sleeping over at my sister's house, and my parents, when they picked me up the next morning, we went straight to Radio Shack. They didn't tell me what was going on. We went straight to Radio Shack, and my dad bought me a keyboard, like a piano keyboard. And, like, I know now, even then I knew, but, like, my mom talked him into it, because I think I've mentioned it, at least in the first episode, but for those of you who don't know, I was a singer long before I was an actor, and so, I'm an actor. Anyway, so I think my mom talked my dad into buying me a keyboard so that I could learn to play and accompany myself. I did not learn how to play that keyboard, but that's not really relevant right now, is it? Thanks for bringing it up, y'all. You know what I haven't thought about at all, Tim? How frequently we're saying, or I forgot to pay attention to that to see if I was doing it too much, but I noticed it just then because I know I said it at least 3 or 4 times.
The listener won't know what you're talking about because they're all going to be edited out.
Don't cut them all out. It's supposed to sound natural. These people are supposed to think we want to be talking to them, Tim. They're not going to think that if it sounds too clean. It won't sound organic. Anyway, but yeah, so they bought me that keyboard, and I don't remember how much it was exactly, but if I had to guess, it was probably somewhere around 100, 150, probably. And so when I was a kid and I knew they bought me that, I was like, oh, we must be rich. Like, if they can just buy that, we must have money. But now I know that is not the case. Oh, so I was listening to, in the journey of creating this podcast, y'all, I have begun listening to podcasts. I didn't really do it too much before, but now I'm like listening to them all the time. So I was listening to one, and it was this tech guy. He posts on YouTube, that's how I found him, about just how to use different equipment, cameras and audio recording things, and he switches off between doing film and video. And anyway, in his podcast, I think it's called The Enthusiasm Project. It's a pretty good listen. But anyway, in one of his episodes, he mentioned, I don't remember what specifically, but he was talking about some sort of gear. I think it was a microphone of some kind. And he was like, it's only around 200. And I'm like, only around 200? Only 200? Like, that's like 5 weeks of groceries for me. Like, $200? And like, he's not the only one. That's not to talk down on him. Good for him if he can afford that. But I also watch a lot of other YouTubers because I like to learn. But there are plenty of other YouTubers and podcasters who have said things like, oh yeah, this thing is only $400. And I'm like, what do you mean only? Like, I get that in comparison to a lot of gear, because there's plenty of really great gear that's like 1,000 plus. So I'm like, okay, in comparison to that stuff, that makes sense. But still, to use the word only and to talk about it like, oh, just go buy this. Yeah. Like, so nonchalantly. Like, you can totally start podcasting. It's super cheap. You can start for like under $500. And I'm like, $500 is not super cheap. If it is for you, that is so fantastic. But don't go around talking about $500 being super cheap, because it's not for everyone. It's just not.
Yeah. I think going back to my experience, a lot of it is like...
Oh, you can't relate to anyone else's experience?
No.
You can't speak from anyone else's experience? You've only lived your life? Okay, Timothy. Get out more.
I mean, but what I was going to say was, I think a lot of it is just doing the work of unlearning your privilege, or not unlearning your privilege, but like understanding your privilege, which I guess is the opposite. It doesn't make you a bad person. The thing about privilege is using it to better the world around you, I guess, or like using it to help other people, or at least to understand other people. I don't know where I'm going with this, but like, yeah, like, just not everybody has the same experience as you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and because having privilege does not inherently make you a bad person.
Sure.
Like, not even kind of. None of us choose into which families, genders, identities, or races we are born. None of us get to choose any of that. It just happens to us. And a lot of people just don't understand that all of those things matter. But just because they do matter, and just because you might have one that society has told us matters more, that does not mean you're a bad person. It just means that you have to learn that there are other people who don't have as much as you do. Just like those of us who are not privileged had to learn that we are not bad people just because we are not white, straight, or any of those other things that the founding fathers loved. Did that get too real for a second? Not sorry about it.
I'm trying to think. There was like a kernel of something.
Oh, that's self-doubt. Is this a stomachache, or is it self-doubt? Am I hungry, or am I full of hate for myself?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Los ambos. I don't know if I said that right. I'm learning Spanish.
Yeah, AJ's getting really great at Spanish.
Thanks. Duolingo.
Man, I'm so behind on my Duolingo.
I don't know what that means.
I haven't done it in a really long time.
That doesn't mean you're behind. It just means you haven't done it in a really long time. You're way behind me. I'm checking right now. I'm on a 648 day streak.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I need to start like watching things in Spanish though, because like my only Spanish interactions are on Duolingo. So like, I need to expose myself more to it. If there wasn't so much COVID everywhere, I'd go like look up some Latin men, you know? Preferably who only speak Spanish, so I can like, you know, get practice. It's scientific, really.
Yeah, it's all for research purposes.
Oh, fun little anecdote. Okay, so when I was working at Sonic, like forever ago, the first Sonic, I think I've talked about Sonic in 2 episodes now, and I don't think I've explained in either one what Sonic is. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, because Sonic isn't everywhere, Sonic is a fast food drive-in place. So you just like, you pull into a stall in your car. I don't know if I need to specify that. No, I said drive-in. Y'all, just try to keep up, okay? So there's a menu board, and you push the red button and you order from it, and then a car hop brings your food out to you. So anyway, I was a car hop, and I roller skated. We didn't all roller skate, but I did. Anyway.
Very well, I might add.
Thank you. It's been too long. I need to get back to it. But anyway, so at one point, I think it's like 2009, there's another young girl there working at, I'm not a young girl, just to be clear. I'm a young, very young, some might say, very young man. But anyway, so there was a young girl there, working also as a car hop, and she'd only been there a couple weeks. When you're a car hop, you handle all the cash because you take the food out to the people and you get their money. And so often at the end of a shift, half of my tips would be in coins. And so that evening, that was the case for her. And she had so many pennies. And it's the stupidest things. It's like working cash in any retail place. Some days you get a bunch of coins and some days you don't have enough. But so that particular night, she had so many pennies. And she's like, I don't like pennies. And I was like, I mean, I don't either, but that's money.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, do you want these? And seriously, it was like a huge stack. I can't remember how much it was now. It was probably only like a couple dollars, but I mean, that's $2 more than I had. So anyway, she's like, do you want them? And I'm like, you're just giving your pennies away? And because like something that most people would do, and she did do in the future, I did not think to tell her about it then, and that's not because I'm a greedy bitch, but I didn't think to tell her about this then, is that people will trade out their coins, so like you can, like sometimes people at the end of the night when they're cashing out and giving all their money to the manager, instead of giving the manager bills, they'll give them all the coins and then they keep the bills. So she could have asked me for $2 bills in exchange for her 200 pennies, but she didn't think to do that, and really and truly, I just genuinely didn't think to tell her about that in the moment. But anyway, so she's like, yeah, you can have them, and I was like, oh, okay, thanks. And so I'm like scooping them all in, and then like in casual conversation, we're all just talking, and we're talking about saving money or something, and she's like, yeah, well, every penny counts. And then I look at her like as I'm scooping all her pennies, and she's like, except that one.
That reminded me, okay, so this anecdote is about, I guess, knowing your worth, or knowing the worth of your labor, I guess, because this wasn't about, well, it's all a rich tapestry. Oh, that's another Simpsons reference. Anyway, but...
I think we talked about that last episode.
Yeah, we talked about that last episode. That's from a Simpsons episode called Fear of Flying. Anyway, I used to cashier at H-E-B, the aforementioned balloon store, grocery store. In fact, that same location, weirdly enough. Anyway, after I had been cashiering for a year and a half, one of the managers asked me if I wanted to be a customer service mentor. So like train new employees. And she said something along the lines of, and I'm not bragging, but something along the lines of, your customer service is excellent and customers are always, filling out comment cards talking about how great your service is and like how friendly you are and how conversational and kind and like whatever. And so we'd really like for you to train new cashiers. So it's going to be a lateral promotion, meaning that you won't get paid any more than you're getting paid now, and you'll still have to do everything that you're doing now. But I was just so excited to be like acknowledged for like being a good worker that like I got really excited, and I like hugged her, and like I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is great. Like, this is amazing. And looking back on it, I just have to cringe at how elated I was for like a tiny sliver of recognition from, like, I got along well with my managers and everything. Like, that wasn't really a problem. But I mean, I don't talk to them anymore. Like, they're not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean anything to them now.
Right.
And they liked me well enough, and they didn't treat me badly. But yeah, just looking back on it and realizing how happy I was to have the approval of this like corporate entity, like in that way.
Yeah.
And I know it was individual people in the store that quote unquote promoted me, but like it's just so weird.
You've grown so much. We'll explore that in a future episode.
Oh God.
But I think it might be about that time to bid our listeners adieu.
Adieu, adieu to year and year and year.
Yes. Exactly. Timothy, tell them where they can find us.
Y'all can find us at Can I Bother You on Twitter and Instagram, and at Can I Bother You podcast on the Facebook. AJ, where can they find you?
I am at AJ Reyes F13 everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. You can watch my videos where I try to be funny and more or less succeed or not.
You definitely succeed.
Thanks.
And you can find me at TCJDV on Facebook and Twitter, and at Tomatillo88 on Instagram, and at my website, TimothyDailey-Valdes.com.
Oh, also, y'all, we are hoping to do an advice episode in the future. So if you have any problems in your life, and don't pretend you don't, I've seen your Facebook, please send us a message, an email, as some might call it, at botherus@canibotheryou.com. We'd love to help you out. Also, if you just want to say hello, that's totally fine too. Oh, also, if you would rate, subscribe, and review, we would really appreciate the support. Both to help us get the podcast out there, and also because we, Timothy needs an ego at all, and my head isn't big enough. So, just help us out with that, y'all. Please and thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us this week, y'all. We will see you next time. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.